Of all the weaves, of all the weaving techniques, the one I'm about to do next is, in my opinion, the easiest one of all. It's certainly the fastest. It's the fastest by a mile. It is in fact the parallel or shuttle weave. What you need to do is put yourself a whacking great hook in the vise. And I've got a size 2 partridge extra long shank nymph in the vise. Also, don't try weaving with thin material to start with. Put something in like this really heavy duty flock chenille. If you tie that in, weave with that. Weave with a thick chenille to start with until you get the technique of, get the knack of it. Don't just put the hook in the vise and do your weaving directly onto the hook. You need to widen out the body a little bit because the pattern, the weaving pattern, will look so much better when you've made the body wide. And what I've done, I've tied in a couple of these little tapering cocktail sticks. Tie them in, one on either side. They've got nice little tapering ends, so you get a nice taper to your abdomen. So the other thing to remember, when you're tying your material in, don't just tie it in as you take it from the card. This flock chenille is manufactured on a thin core, so strip the chenille off for about an inch and reveal some of the thin inner core. Then tie that in such that the flock, the actual little bits, fluffy bits sticking out, start right at the end of the shank where you want the weave to start. And do make sure that when it's tied in really, really firm and secure. There's nothing worse, nothing more infuriating than to start the weave and suddenly you see it slip and come out and you think, oh, damn. So they are one or two little ground rules. A few more rules pertaining to the weaving itself. When you start, remember that with this weave, with this parallel or shuttle weave, the hands keep hold. You do not let go of the material. So there's no putting it over and crossing hands and trading grips. You don't do any of that. You grab hold of it and the hands stay on. You always present your weave at right angles to the hook shank. Not like that and not like that. Always at right angles to that hook shank. I'm using two different colours. The dark colour I'm using for the top side of the fly, and the lighter colour I'm using for the underside of the fly. Make sure you've got these on the correct side. The hand holding the dark olive will only go over the top, backwards and forwards over the top. It will never go underneath, shuttle backwards and forwards. Similarly, the orange is only going to go backwards and forwards underneath. And then finally, make sure, and this is the skillful bit, this is down to you now, make sure the tension is the same throughout the weave. That's to say the tension on your chenille. So pull up a chair and glue your eyes onto this and concentrate. Here we go. It's olive over, lock with the orange, orange to this side. Olive over, lock with the orange, back underneath. Over, under. So you see the change sides, always changing sides. Over, under, over, under, over, under. Then you can work a rhythm up and you can just get going like that. Now, blast away like that. And then for teaching yourself, take them off again, going the same way. Di-da, di-da, and just take them off. All the way back down. And that's how you teach yourself. You'll notice that as I'm weaving, my fingers are sliding back on it as it's being used up. So you start off like that, and when you're finished, you'll find that your hands will be out here somewhere, or you'll be at that position on the chenille. So, last time now at full speed, at fly tying speed, and you can see just how quick this weave is. It's almost as quick as just wrapping on a thread to make a body. Done. To finish it, all you do, you can either catch on your thread there and then lock these two ends down, or just throw on an overhand knot and pull it down, and then you can leave it. That won't come undone. So that's your practice. That's your practice weave. Turn it on its side, and this is the bit that tells you if you're really getting the hang of it. What you're looking for is this row of trapping spots, if you like. That row to be as straight and even as you can get them. Now on this heavy duty chenille, it's not so fussy because it's so thick and fluffy as this that it's going to hide a multitude of sins. But wait till you're doing the fly that we're going to do next, the Polish woven nymph, using a thin thread. Then that really tests you. That's when your thread tension is really, really critical. I'm going to show you one or two bugs and nymphs that have been done with weaving. All these in here, in fact, have been done with one of the various forms of weave that we're going to do on this programme. There's a row and a third of Polish woven types, some with tail appendages, some without. There are two with 6 little crow feather legs. But you don't necessarily just have to do Polish woven nymphs with this. It lends itself to all sorts, all manner of aquatic insects, larvae, pupa, grubs, anything. I mean, for instance, I do a monster, and this is a big dragonfly nymph I've done. Same weaving process, same spot changes up the side. I've done that with dark olive and a lighter olive, because dragonfly nymphs are usually quite drab, muddy coloured creatures. Legs of micro chenille, which I've licked down with the old trick of licking it with a lighter flame. Wing buds, 2 wing buds of partridge feather, complete feathers, just slicked down with head cement. A couple of dumbbell eyes, accentuated. Now the body shape for this, what I did, I cut a piece of cardboard out to this nice ovoid shape, mixed a bit of 5-minute epoxy, stuck it first of all onto the hook and let it dry so that the cardboard was fixed, and then I built a little sort of sausage shape up with epoxy to start with. So underneath here is a smaller version of what you see here, this lozenge shape of epoxy. Little appendages there of a bit of swan quill. So just let your imagination run riot and shows you what you can do with this weaving technique. So from this whacking great size 8 long shank dragonfly nymph, using exactly the same technique, I've done a size 16 Batis nymph. And there's a little Batis nymph. And I've tied that upside down because it's on a down-eyed hook. So this will swim now the right way up. It'll swim. That will be the side to the riverbed. Usual badger tails. The little woven abdomen I did with very, very thin slivers of clear flexibody on the ventral side. And on the dorsal side, which I'll show in a minute, I used an equally thin sliver of olive flexibody. And that has got a nice translucence. So there it is, the dorsal side, the top side, and that's the way it will swim. I've put little rubber legs in. This is a cracking pattern. This is the one I use most of the time now. That's how the legs will wiggle. And that's done with the same weave as I've done with this, exactly the same. I've also got in here an original Polish woven nymph. Now this one is one that was tied by Vladi in Poland. In my opinion, is one of the exponents of Polish woven nymphs, both the tying and the fishing of the Polish style. So that's one of his. I got about half a dozen off him when he took me fishing one morning after the World Championships. And you can see, look how neat those change direction spots are. And you can see this really nice ridge, and you can run your nails along there, along the bottom. And also note that the changeover spots on both sides are quite near the bottom, so in actual fact the fly has got a fairly flat bottom and the dorsal surface is rounded. And he's run a little greeny olive rib through it. Also note that the head is fairly long. So that's the simplest form of the Polish woven nymphs. It's just a grub. And here's one. This is one that I've tied. And this has got the two appendages. It's got tail fibres. It's got a little beard hackle. And I'm striving, you see. I'm getting there. I'm striving to get my little changeover spots all in line. I've lost about 3 there that are not in line. But we're talking fly tying competition stuff now. So there's Vladdy's and there's mine. And that's what we're going to do next. Get rid of that. That's my practice piece. And what I've tried to do is mimic the hooks that I've seen on Vladdy's examples. He chooses the fairly thick wire, the fairly strong wire hooks, and the bend looks to be more or less a model perfect type bend. It's not a round bend, it's more of a slightly sloping bend. So the nearest I can find are these partridge grey shadows, and I'm going to do it on an 8. When you see these Polish woven nymphs in their actual fly boxes, they're usually 8s, 10s and 12s. They're the popular sizes. I've seen the odd 6, but it's 8s, 10s and 12s. I'm going to do it on an 8. So, hook in the vise, and first thing to do is to obviously knock the barb down. One of the great features about these particular flies is their rapid rate of descent through the water column. They're very slick flies, not many fibres sticking out, nothing woolly about them. They're smooth, they sink like plummets. So obviously they have a fair bit of weight in them, and the weighting is crucial. So I would suggest that you don't get lead any thinner than this. This is 0.6 of a millimetre. I would say 0.6 to 0.8 of a millimetre, so that's sort of medium to heavy lead. And lead wire is the thing. I mean, I'm really keen on sticky back lead, but for this, lead wire, you can't beat it. So just touch the shank with just a droplet of super glue, and that'll run along. And then I'd like to be able to use this from the spool, but if you use it from the spool, you'll find that you twist the wire and it'll break on you. So I take off about 1/8 inch of wire, on with your lead, and don't go right to the end of the shank. Give yourself a bit of tapering room and start winding on. And once you've got 3 or 4 wraps, you'll find it will grip, and then you can go hand over hand. And you can see this is going to be quite weighty. Make sure your turns are touching and come up to about 3 lead wraps short of the eye. Then you can nip that off. I'll just do one more wrap round there and nip off. So there's your lead. Now on with your thread. When you tie your thread on, just leave a little tag like this. Get your thread on and then run down, taking the tag down as well, but don't take it along in touching turns, otherwise it'll drop in between the turns of wire. Go to rakish angle and crisscross and come up and down several times and drop off the lead there. And then just, the idea is to smooth this lead out. So just run across with a few turns, making wide angle crisscrosses. And then come to the front, and where the lead has finished, there's the lead and there's the shank stuck out. I want to taper that off. So just run a nice long taper there. And then come along and do the same at the back. Now tying down that tag, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring that tag back over this. I'm going to bring it back over. And that's an old trick from salmon fly tyers do that, and it stops any chance of the thread drifting down, slipping down this bend. So I'll just lock that down. Getting this underbody right is quite crucial. And then you bring that tag back. And you tie that waist end in. Now that's like a tethered down loop. That stops it slipping further round. And then I can crop off any waist. And then I just look up and down it, see if there's any low spots. If there's any low spots, just dub them out with your thread. Just spend a second looking at it. That doesn't seem bad. The next thing to go in is tail appendages. I'm going to have tails and a beard hackle on mine. So I've come to me light ginger cock. When I've seen Polish woven nymphs, they seem to have had a tail or beard hackle in a reddish cast, either ginger or red game. So take out a few fibres from the feather and now tie them in and let them overhang about half a body length. Trade grips. Just catch them down and now just tie them in right off the end of the formed underbody. Keep them nice and central. Don't trim the waist, just flatten it on top. All else for a bit of padding does that. And then for my rib, I'm using this Krynic, I think they call it blending fibre, blending filament. It's like a plastic with two fine nylon filaments for strength. And I like this sort of limey green colour. But you can use, there's no fixed rule, you can use gold wire, silver wire, or just another colour fly tying thread. Offer that in, bring your thread up a bit, offer it in full length, and catch it down. I tie that in smack dab at top of the tails. So there's my rib. And now I'm ready to put my actual weaving material in. So for that I'm using this Danville's 4-strand rayon. This dark bronzy browny olive for the back, the back of the nymph, and for the belly I'm choosing a contrasting yellow. I'm trying this because it's got this nice sheeny finish, but this does have one drawback, and that is it's prone to fraying. For the dorsal surface I'm using 3 strands. This is a 4-strand material, so if I hold that long one, that means the 3 that I want are there. So take off, I don't know, you want about 10 inches I should say. Don't skimp, because if you run out, if you find you've not enough and you're working with your fingers up here and you've nearly run out, you'll be really cursing. So tie in your first weaving material and just catch it in and draw through. Catch it in full length. Tie this on the near side because I'm going to turn this upside down. I always find it's better to do Polish woven nymphs when you're looking down on the belly, so I'm going to turn this upside down because I want those change locks to be more to the underside there, not on the side. I want them to be down there. And when you look at Vladdy's, you see him, that's how he does his. So I'm tying this on the near side because when I turn it over, it will be on the far side, and that's the right way for me for weaving. Try not to upset your tails. That's that in. Get your yellow thread and again run off the same amount. And now tie these in on the far side. Pull through, tie down, then run it down right to the end where you had your tails tied in. When you get to that last point, really put some weight on, because you definitely don't want this material to slip. Tighten as hard in as a steel hawser, get it really, really tight. Look one last time for any imperfections, any hollows. If you see a hollow in the body at this stage, just dub it out with thread. Because any imperfections in this, what you might call an underbody, will show up when you do the weaving. come up to the head of the fly, then throw on a 1-finger whip, and you're ready. Cut off. You must have your thread and your bobbin out of the way when you're doing this weaving. You can't work with it in the way. I can't weave in that position. I've got to have it here facing me. So the first thing I do is invert the hook in the vise, let the weaving material hang, let the tail fibres drop in the gap in the jaws, and grip on. And now I'm going to turn it towards me. I find with this slippery sheer rayon, to perform best, I have to moisten it. I find that if I don't, there's lots of little flyaway filaments spring out. And that's it, I'm ready to go now. So this is the bit that tests you. This shows you how good you are at thread control, how good you are with tension. Because you've got to make these changeover spots all be in a row. So here we go. Remember, right angles and don't let go. Yellow over, lock with the brown. Yellow over, lock with the brown, brown to the underside, yellow over. I'm trying to make all my locking spots all up at the top where I can see them. Over, over, lock, return. Over, lock, return. Over, lock, return. And just keep going. And you'll see that this rayon floss flattens nicely. Looking good. Keep going. When you start coming down this front taper, it may want to slip forwards, and this is why I think some of the Polish woven nymphs have longish heads, because I think most people have problems here. Now when you get to there, don't try knotting this stuff, because what I find is that it starts fraying as you draw the knot up. Keep it tight, trade grips. I'm just going to lop off a bit of this because it's in my way. Find my bobbin, get my bobbin thread in there, and quickly get a thread lock on there, get a thread catch. And now, trade grips, and I reach over with that hand and I drop my thread behind, and there I've caught the two strands down. Whew, I can relax now. I could trim them, but if you do, there's a risk that you may get some fibres over the eye. So a neater way is to just hold those back and tie down. Now I've shoved all the waste bits back. When you trim these off now, you won't see, and nothing will stick in the way of the hook eye. And then drop on a whip finish there, because now that you've got this nice body, you don't want to suddenly nudge your bobbin and find you've lifted it off and it's all gone and dropped off the front, and all your thread wraps come undone, all your weaves. So I have a look at it now. That's come up good as that. I've got them banging line. Look at them changeover spots. They're beautiful. I must be getting better in my old age. Or I've practised. Now look at the other side. Well, they're not bad. They've come out pretty good. I'm pleased with that. So what you do now, you get your rib, and the rib is going to drop between each of your overlocks. If you look at it in silhouette and hold it up against the light, you'll see where you've made overlocks. There's a series of little bumps like that, almost like raker filler body segments. So I drop my rib into these. It just drops in there and comes all the way down, and it just goes in these grooves. It can't help but go in the right place, and it comes all the way along, all the way along. And hey presto, you're up at the head and you tie down. So all I've got to do now is tie my little beard hackle, colour and varnish the head, snip off. One last job now, swing it back to the tying position, put a beard hackle in, which is same as the tails, a little clump of fibres, tweak them out, bundle those up, sit them in, don't worry about length at this stage, trade grips, pinch and loop, just drop your thread over, and then just pull back on the waist to shorten the length. They're about right. Clinch around now with tighter wraps. Now you can if you want, take your scissors and nip those off, but you'll always have a few fibres sticking over the eye. The best thing to do is to get hold of the butts, take them back, come over with your thread and trap down like that. You've also double locked your hackle. Drop it into the shoulders of the eye, and then when you cut the butt, you can just lift the butt up. On with a whip finish, varnish, and you've done. So I'll make a nice little tapered head. They have actually got fairly large heads of Polish woven nymphs. So if you're one of these people that naturally do big heads, and I know there's a few out there, here's your chance to excel. Crop off. And because I've been using a pale olive power silk, and all the Polish woven nymphs I've seen have always had a black head, so just go around. And I think Alfred would have probably died for the stuff we have today to tie with. Can you imagine getting his hands on some instant dyeing sticks like these? Head cement now. Put the thing back in the correct attitude, in the jaws. And I'll put this on, I won't put it on with a brush, I'll put it on with my dubbing needle. Bit of a yard broom is that. Run a little droplet on there and take it down the sides. Spread it on, just a little light dabs. If you just happen to be a tad clumsy and got some over the eye, let's say you've put it on with a yard brush like that. I'll show you a little trick. Alright, I know most of you know about it, but some of you won't. You look around on the floor of your den. You're sure to find a hackle. Pick it up, there's one here, the black one. Strip a few fibres off the bottom to give you a lead. If it ain't got a point on, just clip a point on like that. I work upwards, stick it through the hook eye, and then just wipe up. And that makes a nice little eye clearer. As clean as a whistle. So there you are. That's the Polish woven nymph. And if I look round it, I see that I've not got a bad job there. I'm getting a bit better. It's because I've been practicing. This is one of the flies. This weaving is one of the things to practice on. Practice, practice, practice. Because if you practice, you'll get these results every time. Use your imagination. Don't be hidebound. If you want, copy some of the insects on your stream, like stonefly colours or Cadislava colours. I think it's a general imitate all type fly. It copies Cadislava, it might copy shrimps. It's just a very prototypical generic pattern. So, that's ready for the fly box now.